Do 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 do. Vegan prepper. Do 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 do. Vegan prepper. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing me fill up my Masala Dabba. And if you don't know what a Masala Dabba is, it is a little spice container. It's a very traditional piece of kitchen equipment in an Indian kitchen. And I have been wanting one for absolutely forever. Adam bought this one for me for Christmas, and I have been agonizing over how I was going to fill it. And I only just now finally decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. And the great thing about it is, of course, if I should decide that any one of these spices doesn't need to be in here, either because I just simply don't use it enough, or for whatever reason, it's very easy for me to go ahead and dump the spices right back into the container where they came from, and then I can just wash the little cup and switch it out. So I'm very excited. Just a couple things to keep in mind is that these are not sealed, as in like if it got knocked onto the floor, all the spices would go everywhere. This is about being able to grab something conveniently. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Indian cooking. And I do kind of probably most Indians out there would think that it's kind of a botched version of Indian cooking, because I am vegan, but I am also, the veganism is not the part that would be botched, because actually tons of Indian food just naturally is vegan. It's the fact that I don't cook with oil. So I have to do a lot of kind of different techniques that are not necessarily traditional. Like, so for instance, instead of cooking the spices in oil before I start to cook, I always take the spices and put them into a dry pan and do a quick kind of dry roast of all of the spices to bring out some of their oils and bring out some of their flavors, which is usually one of the first steps in most Indian dishes, is to kind of cook the spices up to get that bloom, that flavor. So I do it dry and not in oil. But all of my Indian food comes out tasting, to me anyway, really delicious. And it is probably, no, it is 100% my favorite cuisine on the earth. If I could eat nothing but Indian food for the rest of my life, I would be a very happy person. But I do mix it up sometimes for my family, and I cook other things because they are not necessarily as into the Indian food as I am. But it is one of the cuisines I would definitely recommend you become familiar with, especially if you are vegan, because it is so easy to cook yummy, amazing things. Just things that are so full of flavor. One of the things that I hear a lot when people talk about going vegan or going plant-based is that they're afraid that their food is not going to have any flavor. And that always really cracks me up, because you know, like the vast majority of flavoring comes from plants. Like almost every flavoring you can think of comes from plants. I had somebody ask me, because I mentioned that on another channel at one point, and somebody asked me about that. And they said, well, what about bacon? What plant flavor is that? And honestly, if you think about it, bacon is wood smoke flavor. It's usually smoked for, I don't know, like weeks. Like they do so much to uncured pork belly to turn it into what everybody worships now as bacon. And really, it's just like a smoky flavor, which you can get from liquid smoke or from smoking things. So I imagine if you took almost any vegetable and you put the kind of time and energy into curing and creating something out of that, as people do with, you know, various meats and stuff, those vegetables would be absolutely delectable as well. Basically meat of its own. It does have a flavor, but for the most part, people have to kind of flavor the heck out of it to make it what people think of as a mouth-watering dish, you know, and most meat eaters will agree. Like, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm just saying this is as an encouragement for anybody who's going plant-based or who's going vegan. Flavor is plants. So do not worry about your food not being flavorful. You may need to learn a new way of cooking. And for that, I heartily recommend getting familiar with Indian cooking if you enjoy that at all. And this book right here, Vegan Indian Cooking by Anupi Singla, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, is one of my favorite cookbooks on my shelf. I have her Indian slow cooker recipe as well, which is not vegan, and I just ordered her cookbook, Vegan or Indian for Everyone, which I'm sure is amazing, but I can't necessarily recommend it because I don't have it yet. So the chai spice that I created at the beginning of the video is the recipe from this book, which I will not share because it's not my recipe. But basically it takes all whole spices, grinds it up, and now I have a chai spice blend in my Masala Dabba, which will be super easy to access so that I can start having somewhat nightly chai, which is something that I really want to be doing kind of for my health, to get those anti-inflammatory spices in me, and it just makes it super easy. And I wish that we had smell-o-vision, because if you guys could have smelled the scents coming out of that blender, oh my gosh, it was amazing. I wish I could have shared that with you. But ultimately, if you're interested in this book, I just highly recommend. She's got a lot of really great recipes in here, including that that paneer recipe that I make. Some people have asked me about my palak paneer. She uses tofu instead of paneer, and that is the book where I get that recipe from, as well as amongst others. She's got some recipes in here for spices. There's a whole section in the beginning talking about why basically Indian food is perfect for veganism. She goes through talking about all of the spices that she uses. It was actually her book that gave me the idea to do a combination of cinnamon sticks and cardamom in one of the little cups for the Masala Dabba. And so she goes into every spice. She goes into describing so many of the different beans and all kinds of stuff. This is actually, like, if you've never cooked Indian before, this is actually would be a great start. So I can't recommend that book enough. But one of the other really great things about a Masala Dabba is because of the convenience, and you'll notice that most of the spices that I chose to put in here are pre-ground, because there are actually only a few spices that I like to leave whole in the dishes. Things like the mustard seeds, which typically in Indian food would be brown or black mustard seeds, but I have a ton of yellow mustard seeds, so I'm going through those first. I do recognize that that is not the ideal thing, but that's just what I'm doing. And then I also got whole cumin seeds in here, which I also will leave whole in a dish. And then obviously the cardamom pods and the cinnamon sticks are things that get picked out kind of before you eat, or as you eat. If you happen to find one, you usually pick that out and don't eat it. But like coriander seeds are like a little too big. I don't mind those, but this is something where I'm keeping my family in mind as I am cooking my food. And so I chose to go with ground coriander in my Masala Dabba rather than whole coriander seeds, even though my personal preference would be for whole. But I have plenty of whole coriander seeds, and so I love the pop of the coriander seed. If you don't know, the the plant that in the US we call cilantro. Other places call it just coriander, and it's the leaf of the plant. But in the US we call the leaf of the plant cilantro, and we call the seed of that same plant coriander. So it's coriander seed, whereas I believe in other countries they will specify coriander leaf, coriander seed. And so yeah, that's like a little tidbit. But anyway, I'm very excited about this, and hopefully I really enjoy using it in my Indian cooking. Being able to cook up a dish where I don't have to open a million of these spices at once is super appealing to me. Oh, and then let me just quickly mention that little spoon. So this is a little spoon that I picked up months ago at a local restaurant supply store. I get a lot of my equipment and some of my dishes and things like that. I try as much as possible to shop local, although this did come from Amazon. Like I said, Adam bought it for me. The one that I have my eye on gorgeous brass ones from Etsy. So they're like $50 though. So I'm gonna see how much I like this one before I decide to purchase one of the more expensive ones. But this spoon, it looks almost like aluminum, but it's not. It's stainless steel. It says right on it that it is stainless steel. And I don't know, when I was in the store, I saw that spoon and I was like, I have to have that spoon. And I didn't know why until I was filling up my Masala Dabba, and sure enough, this little spoon fits absolutely perfectly down in there. So that's gonna be the spoon that I use to scoop spices and when I'm cooking. And I'm very excited about that. So it's super beautiful. I just love how pretty it is. And I know it's gonna get gunked up with spices, but you know what? It's pretty, okay? So anyway, I guess, yeah, that's gonna be it. So I very much encourage you to, for the most part, store your spices whole. That's what I like to do. So like all of the ground cumin in my house now is cumin that I ground from cumin seeds. The same thing with mustard, and I'm almost through the last batch of ground coriander that I had purchased, long ago. But now I have a huge batch of coriander seeds, which I'm going to begin grinding for my own ground coriander. This is how you can keep your spices freshest, longest. The most long-term storage you're going to get from spices are from spices stored in their whole form. And if you're grinding up a large batch like I did for the chai spices in the beginning, then you would likely be using kind of like a high-powered blender like my Vitamix, which is what I used. Or you can use a small dedicated spice grinder, like a coffee grinder. So for instance, I have a coffee grinder which I use to grind coffee beans. At this point, only decaf, because if you guys have followed us for any amount of time, you know that we have quit caffeine in our house. But I still really love the taste of coffee, so sometimes I will grind up some decaf and make it in one of my French presses up here. But the dedicated spice grinder I have, that's also like my pepper. All of the ground pepper in our house is ground from whole peppercorns, and it just makes it like, just so fresh, so delicious. And so I would highly encourage you, if you have not begun to stock whole spices and grind them yourself, to look into that, especially because a lot of the recipes in this book and a lot of the really truly authentic, delicious Indian spice blends that you will find online. Like you can find a recipe for a chai that you can grind yourself online. It probably won't be this one, but it will be a good one too. So you don't necessarily have to find the book, but a lot of them will have you use whole spices, which you then grind. So I can't wait until I am out. It might sound weird, but there's a recipe in here for Garam Masala, which I am super interested in trying. But I'm not going to make my own Garam Masala until I am out of the ground Garam Masala that I have purchased in the past. And so I figure I will go ahead and also show you really fast, in case you don't want to store ground spices. Obviously, you do whatever you want for your own comfort level, for your own work level, or if you're just starting, maybe you don't feel like stocking up on a million different whole spices, you want to just get a couple of blends. So one of the ones I mentioned is Garam Masala. I am very fortunate to live in a place that has a lot of different kinds of grocery stores around. I've got Asian markets, I've got an international market which has all of the all of the Indian spices I could ever need. There's also even a Korean market that has just opened up like within a relatively reasonable driving distance of my house. And so I have access to all kinds of amazing international food. But I will definitely say Rani spices have been my go-to for a very long time. And I'm just now getting into grinding my own spices. But what I really love about these, which I pick up at my local international market, theoretically, if you have an Asian market, or, you know, an international market or a global market, whatever you have near you, you may have an entire section of Indian spices. And if so, it is likely that you will be seeing a huge amount of Rani brand spices, which I also really love because they are salt free, at least all of the ones I've ever seen. So definitely check if that's a concern for you. But you can get the spice blend and it's salt free, and you can get kind of larger containers like this or smaller ones, and stock up a little bit on that. But once I get through this, I'm going to start grinding my own garam masala, and I'm super excited about that. But anyway, hopefully that helps you. So spices are a great thing to keep on hand for keeping your food flavorful in, you know, whatever situation you find yourself in. Just a weeknight is, you know, the situation I'm mainly talking about right now. So I am going to figure out what I'm cooking tonight for dinner, and I'm going to be using some of these spices. So my family's getting Indian food again. Poor them, right? Like, really? It's like, get the world's tiniest violin, cry me a river. It's all good. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. If you have anything you'd like to talk about below in the comments, add to the conversation, ask me any questions. Let me know if you have a favorite resource for some Indian food or Indian spices or whatever. And like that, yeah, not the least of which, Vegan Instant Pot by Nishavora. Nishavora is Rainbow Plant Life. If you look her up online, she has a lot of amazing Indian recipes in addition to a whole bunch of extremely indulgent, amazing vegan recipes, which I have to work very hard at making oil-free, but they still turn out really good. And then I'm trying to think of another person who does a lot of Indian food. But anyway, I need to go ahead and cut this off. This is getting long enough. Thank you so much for staying with me. Let me know down in the comments below if you have anything to add. As always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, see you later. Bye.